But
We got to go. We
Ready?
didn't get wiped out
Yep,
so
ready.
many flash
We are
floods.
recording.
Call the meeting to order. And today is Thursday, June 16th. It's noon, and this is the Warrick County Solid Waste Management District Board meeting. First order of business is call to order.
Doing roll call. Terry Philippi.
Here.
Sarah Seaton.
Here.
Stacy France.
Here.
Greg Richmond.
here,
Tracy Matthews.
Here.
Charlie Wyatt. Jim Miller.
here.
Okay. And we have some folks in the audience, but they're vendors, so we'll let them speak at the appropriate place on the agenda. No other public comment. And there we go. Aegis is up next.
That was quick.
We probably could wait a minute. Kevin said he had to do something real quick. So I think, and Kevin is going to be the primary presenter as far
Okay.
as I understand. So we could
Okay. We'll
hop forward and come back.
come back to that item, and right now we'll handle the approval of minutes from the May meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First, a second, any comments or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And Reagan, you want to go ahead and start on the controller's report?
Sure. We ended the month of May with $3,500,984.24. The first thing I have on the agenda is the 2026 requested budget. I did not change anything from the last meeting. I just wanted to double check to make sure what we spent last year on our property insurance, liability insurance, those things that I had put enough in there compared to last year, and I feel like I did. So the requested budget is $3,125,559. So I just need approval from the board if you don't have any questions or comments to get that submitted to Crystal for it to go in front of the county council.
Are we using the same insurance broker, Epic, as the county?
No, we are still, solid waste is still using First Advantage.
Reagan, I see on here, you have employee names that haven't been changed. Is that, I mean, that's minor. Are those amounts all still correct?
Yes. Can you, who specifically are you?
Pardon?
Who specifically are you? Is there a zero amount on for 2026?
Oh, yeah, there is. Okay.
When I remove those employees out of there, it'll throw off past years
I see what you're.
of my total amounts.
Yep.
So I'm leaving them on there just so it doesn't throw my overall spreadsheet off from previous
I'm sorry, I
years.
just didn't
That's
look all
okay.
the way to the right. Anyone have any other questions or comments? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
You continue on, or you want to start with Aegis? Okay.
Oh, he is back. Are you guys okay with us finishing up Reagan's section of the agenda here?
Processing center numbers. Freddie is on a bike ride in Canada, so much needed vacation, much deserved vacation. So far this year, the processing center has received 649.6 ton. They have processed 521.6 ton. And our contamination level down there overall is 0.40 ton. Yes, or 0.40%, I'm sorry. So yeah, that's significant compared to where we have been in the past. So for the month of May, it's 0.7%.
Can I ask a question mathematically?
Yeah.
How can we have 5, 1, 3, 6, and then 0.7 and have an average year-to-date total of 0.4?
Yeah, I would, yeah, I was curious also.
I would have to talk to Freddie about that.
It might just be,
I mean, I know you'd have to figure in how many pounds were done each month too, but still that, it can't be below 0.7, right?
Point, yeah.
I mean, it should be much higher than that, actually. It's still really good, don't get me wrong. It's still really, really good, but
I think the decimal's off one.
But the,
Yeah, and the question is whether it comes off the process, or it has to come off the process
Right.
totals. So
Well, that should be
45,000 into a
4.0.
million.
Pretty close. He says
Four.
3.59.
Yeah.
is that what you meant?
okay, so that should be probably
Oh.
4.0 approximately.
I sent
We can
Kevin
share
all
one
these
over here.
numbers.
Yeah.
And I still don't think it's.
Sorry, that was a Greg Richmond catch.
Okay.
He catches the typos, I catch the math.
Okay. That's all the,
I got you.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're presenting. I can be your assistant.
Help you
Thanks.
with average, median, and mean.
And Freddie usually has the numbers from the sites on the back of this, and I do not have those. So we will have the updated numbers for next month.
Okay.
He's been really busy. The next thing that I have, do you want to explain those numbers for what you just handed out?
Am I jumping in the midst?
No,
of
that
yours?
would actually flow a little better, I feel like.
Okay. Hi. First time I've been down here to meet the group, but I've been involved with the single source recycling for about,
Couple of
Yeah.
years. Can you introduce yourself for the
oh,
record?
Kevin Allen, sorry. Kevin Allen with Aegis. I took over this project about 2 years ago, I think, year and a half ago. We had a person leave our firm and this landed on my desk. So I've been with Aegis for almost 10 years now. And this is a real interesting project, and I really like the results that I'm going to go over here real quick with you. In a nutshell, to piggyback onto what Reagan just started with, you'll see the first 5 months of 2023. And breaking down all these numbers, you're grabbing about 81% of your tonnage coming in. 20% being non-processable, non-resellable, whatever. And with your labor costs, cost of landfill and such, you had a value in there of $367 a ton, doing it the old way for the first 5 months of 2023. Coming down to 2025, the first 5 months, and I think your 0.4% was actually supposed to be 4%, not 0.4%. So you see now you're processing about 96, a little over 96% of the waste that comes in. That coupled with the labor reduction, you went in a tremendously positive direction, reducing some of your costs from the $367 per ton to about $16 per ton on this first 5 month average. And everything I see is this, you get the bugs work out of it, you get more product coming in, you're going to be on the making money. Okay. I think you're going to, by the end of the year, your average, if we were to do this spreadsheet, you're going to come out on the black on this, moving from a negative 367 to a, plus side. You're going to be more than breaking even. So this is getting down to 3% waste with what I see this doing is phenomenal. And when you start looking at the reduction of labor cost, the increased throughput capacity, I had talked to Freddie last week. He said, you're starting to bring in waste from Toyota. So all I see is this getting better and better as you get more material coming in. So
The
I believe-
ultimate goal when this was started was to get it off the taxpayer rolls.
Well, if
Moving
this,
in that direction.
this is great. I know this isn't a full accounting with your debt service and all that stuff. It just, let's break these two or three numbers out and compare them. So I think you're going in a great direction. I only see it, yeah, hugely positive for the community. So much so that we're actually have a couple other communities around the state we might try to say, hey, come down and take a look at these guys. So it's a great thing. With that, if you're done,
I have a couple other things.
Go ahead.
I'll
let you finish before I start.
The next thing I have 924G, one of our, it's an old loader. We purchased it from the commissioners in 2003. It is not beyond repair. We can repair it. It has a trade-in value. There is in your packet, Freddie's been in touch with Boyd, Cat about this. Trade-in value of $10,000. That's if we don't take the tires off of it. I'm not being smart aleck, really. We really do want to take the tires off of it and put them on the other loader we have, because the tires we put $24,000 worth of tires on it in 2021, and the tires on the loader we're using are wearing out. So we want to put them on there, which will decrease the $10,000, the trade-in value on it. Freddie and I are back and forth on this, so he wanted me to bring it up to the board to get your guys' input, just have a conversation about it. Their inventory list is what is in here with what they have in stock for used loaders. We do have a loader from 2014 we bought for the processing center. We're no longer using. We are using that up at the other end now, that we'll put the tires on, get it up to put some work into it. Freddie's concerned about not having a backup loader. My personal financial perspective on this is I hate to put this much money into a backup loader just to have there on site for when this one goes down. I feel like the money could be utilized better with the new baler, new things like that we need. There's a greater need for down at the processing center. So we've been back and forth on it. He wanted me to bring it up today just to have a conversation with you guys about it, get your input on it. But the repairs are $8,000 on the old loader. The trade-in value is only 10. It's not worth dumping $8,000 into it. So
I guess I have a question looking at this. Under the column that it says status, a lot of these are rental, I'm assuming, that they will sell.
yes,
So
that is my understanding.
So could that be our backup plan? Like if something happens, these are obviously available to rent.
Yes,
Okay.
we could rent one. I know in the past, we have, at Solid Waste, we have always just had one loader. And when we have went down in a pinch, and previously, we also didn't have a transfer station right down the road, because we have to smash the trash down into the dumpsters. Well, now we don't even have to go out onto the road with it. We can stay on the property and just go down there and dump it. Before, we were hauling it to Owensboro and Evansville, and we don't have to do that anymore. So we have that in our favor. And in the past also, if in a pinch, we have also worked with the highway department. If it were on a Saturday, because it would be difficult on a Saturday to not have the equipment. But Boyd is pretty quick about getting with us if we go down. And it's just a matter of getting parts, really, would probably be the holdup. But we were just going back and forth on it. So, like I said, he just wanted your guys' input. But we could rent.
Sarah said the exact same thing that I was thinking. However, out of all of those units, there's only 2 that would be available. They're all rented out right now. So the question becomes the actual availability
If they're available.
the minute you pick up the phone and call.
Just seems like a lot
One
of money
says
as a
available,
backup.
one says shop.
Yeah, Reagan, and they've already brought it up a little bit. Although I think it maybe can be addressed a little more specific is how much of a bind are you in if your loader goes down?
How much of a what?
Bind.
I've talked to two of our guys about it. Their concern is when we have dump trailers that come in, they put the bucket up to the dumpster to catch trash so nothing gets on the ground, because we're not allowed to have anything on the ground out there because it violates our permits. So that's one of their major concerns. And then pushing trash down is another major concern. They put furniture on the ground then they pick it up with that. So on a Saturday, we're going to be in a bind. If it's just during the week, not a major bind. So, because we're not nearly as busy during the week. So, and I asked him, I said, okay, how many times has it gone down and we've had to rely on the backup and in the last year? And he said twice. I said, how long were we out? And was it on a weekend? And we were out for maximum 2 days. It was not on a weekend. So but you never know. I mean, it's a guessing game. Yeah, you just don't know.
I know. Ideally, Bobby probably doesn't want to share equipment, but what pieces of equipment would he have that we could use in a pinch?
And I don't even know that they have a front end loader, which is what we use.
They do,
So, and I don't know that that would be an option.
but I also don't know that it has to be a front end loader.
That would be a conversation I would still have to have with the guys and with the highway department also. And this isn't anything that would have to be decided on right now, just starting the conversation, something to think about. But it's a lot of money to spend on a piece of equipment that could just.
Have you asked Sherry to look on the open market for resale price on it as opposed to trade-in price?
No, that was what Freddie and I had talked about that though, is swap the tires out to put the good tires on the piece of equipment we're keeping and then sell it outright rather than a trade-in value and see if we can get a little
I
more.
promise you it would be more.
Yes.
So was this intended to be just informational?
Just putting it on your guys' radar, get some feedback on it so I can take that back to Freddie. Because we both feel that it's not worth putting the money into it to fix it. It doesn't have the power to do what we use it for anymore. To put the $8,000 into it for repairs isn't worth it for what we need it for. So the next thing I have is push wall. We are needing a push wall down at the processing center. Freddie, I know he's brought it up to you guys several times. Kevin was out and walked the building with us a month ago or so. He came out, he and Freddie discussed that. So that's something we are asking permission to move forward with that and work with Aegis on that project to get that in the works and get him a push wall so he can, instead of pushing those big bunkers around down there, because when he's pushing up against them, they're moving. So he's needing a actual push wall down there to push for the material.
How was that accomplished?
Hmm.
How was that accomplished? I'm naive. I don't know
What for?
how do you,
Like what's a push
what is a
wall?
push wall?
What is
How
push
how do we achieve getting a push wall? Yeah.
Okay. Him and Freddie went through
Okay.
in detail
Okay.
what exactly was needed and.
So just if I could add a little context, the push wall is not something that has to do with phase 2 electric. It's probably obvious, but I'll just say it. Phase 2 electric, what Kevin's going to talk about in a little bit, is going to be the subject of supplement 4 to the existing services contract it was BLN, now it's Aegis. So in the event the board was inclined to consider engaging with Aegis for the push wall project, that would cause supplement number 5 to be created, which would then have the estimated cost for engineering and other aspects of it, and maybe some material costs to give a potential project budget. So I think what Reagan and Freddie are asking in this scenario is just allow Reagan and Freddie to develop the plan for supplement 5 with Aegis to determine a projected project cost that would be contained within supplement 5 that would come before the board some other time.
The funding for that also, we've talked about previously, we had planned on getting a generator for the processing center, which we no longer feel that that is a need. That was prior to the equipment being installed and understanding how that was going to operate. We don't feel that the generator is a need anymore, so that is going to save a substantial amount of money. So we plan the funding for, or where we had budgeted for the generator is where we will have the funding for that.
And just to add a little bit to that, when Kevin speaks, they'll talk about the estimated project cost for phase 2 electric. The budgeted amount that Reagan's talking about for 2025 was phase 2 electric, the wiring, the boxes and all the stuff, plus the generator. If the generator comes off of that, then supplement 5 could be funded by that saving.
That is all that I have.
Gentlemen, you're up.
Okay. Get the restart on this. Some of you don't have to start, so I'll get some of the other.
Yeah.
Now. So, as I said, my name's Kevin Allen with Aegis. I took over this project from Brian Mundy about 1.5 years ago when he left our firm. Wish him all the best and everything. Give you some context about the electric, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but just really rapidly go through how we got to where we're at. When this came on my desk, I had a conversation with Freddie and John Green of Green Machine, familiarize myself with the project, go through all this, and a little, I don't want to say a big red light went off, but a little flashing yellow light went off when I'm hearing about the amperages and electricity requirements of this new single source sorting machine. My background is fairly broad: bridges, roads, natural gas pipelines. I've done commercial development across the eastern United States with a couple of friends of mine. So I've absorbed a wee bit of electrical knowledge. And when I start doing the math on 60 amps here, 80 amps there, it's like, wait a minute, a typical warehouse doesn't have that much power. And we looked at panels, looked at the outdoor transformer and said, yeah, we're right on the edge and we got a little bit of an issue. So we got Mr. Sims and his firm involved and help us walk through getting power set up so that this green machine could be installed and operate. And what we're getting ready to talk about with phase 2 is the need to work with CenterPoint, put in a new upsized transformer outside, and the interior distribution work. Because right now, as Reagan said, they're looking to maybe put in a new baler. Right now, they can run the green machine single source sorter, but they can't turn the baler on. So they can sort their trash, stop, come over here, flip a switch, turn their baler on, and put it in a, compact it, put it in a bale so they can stack it for after it's sorted and ship it out to the recycle sale. So there's also discussion, and I've got a couple drawings here I'll pass out here momentarily, about what does phase 2 handle. Phase 2 will handle everything that they can possibly do in the existing sorting building. Okay, so if they need to bring on a third baler, which I think is back and forth in the works.
We'd like to eliminate the 2 to a dual RAM.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're going to change their equipment out again. That's going to be more efficient, but a higher power requirement than the 2 separate ones. And that will be accommodated. So we're going to be building, the sorting building will be fixed. Okay. With that in mind, it was brought up that, well, what about another auxiliary building? Okay. And I'll show you this plan here. The need for an auxiliary building is going to go hand in hand with the increase in tonnage delivered. Right now, if you've gone out there, you'll see that they've got stacks and stacks of baled sorted material waiting to be put on a truck and taken to their recycled for sale. That's where you're going to get your receivables from. With this machine, it can run 10 tons an hour. You're running 120, 130 tons a month. So think about that for a second. You can run your current tonnage in about 4 days if you had the pieces in place to run the balers while you're sorting, have your front end loader or forklift take the finished bales, sticking them in what's basically a auxiliary storage or a warehouse, so that you can play the market commodities. When aluminum price goes up, here I've got 100 bales of sorted aluminum. Price went up 10 to 15 cents a pound. I'm going to sell them today. Just like us farmers do when we put our corn in the silo, in the grain bins. We wait for the price to go up. Okay. We will maximize our revenue, which, to your point, sir, gets people off, gets this off the tax rolls quicker. So the modification to the phase 2 electric would be to then revise the design to accommodate this auxiliary building. It's basically it's a warehouse, minimal lighting, minimal air control, a small office restroom, nothing fancy about it. Also with the possibility of putting some solar panels on the roof of this. It would be nothing on the existing building, but the new electrical work would accommodate the new building and the possibility of installing solar panels out there. You're in far southern Indiana. I've not been in Brown County, and you go north of where I grew up by Fort Wayne. You wonder why we're putting solar panels up when they're going to get covered with bean dust in the summer and snow in the winter. Down here, you've got a much more viable timeline for that throughout the year. So taking all those things into account, we've gone back and forth a couple times, and I think what little confusion that there has been comes from all good faith conversations, but I think this is the first time that Joe and I and this panel have sat down and had this full-on discussion, so everyone knows what's being discussed all at the same time. So with that, any questions about what I just said, I'll be happy to fill in any gaps.
Well, that brings us to the fact that you are bringing with you today supplement 4 for the board's consideration.
Correct. And what supplement 4 does, it will take care of the redesign of the phase 2 electric. Now, I think part of the conversation was someone said, well, I thought phase 2 was designed, and it's a bit of a wordplay. We all sat around a campground when we were kids, and you said pink elephant to one kid, and by the time it got back around to you, you had a yellow unicorn. So that's what I meant when I said I don't think we've all had the same conversation in the same place. Okay, no one was out of line. No one was trying to find something that anyone did wrong. It was, we needed to have a coherent conversation. And so what was said was that we had the fee put together for the phase 2 electrical work. Not that we had the phase 2 electrical design done. The fee for the design was done. So again, things drop out when we have one person telling the third, second person, third person, fourth person. So things just get dropped. So what we've got here with the supplemental 4 is for the project management, which is what Aegis oversees, just like we were doing when the green machine was going in. And like I said, we caught the oversight on the initial electric, which we caught in time and was able to avoid any dramatic problems. We'd oversee the coordination work with the solid waste district, with their operators, with CenterPoint, and with Mr. Sims Durkin Electric, who is actually doing the design as our subcontractor. So we're here in front. We've been Warrick County has been a longtime client of Aegis BLN, and we're here to support the community and keep our services out here in front of you to watch out for your interests. So.
Thank you. So I would like to direct the board members to the fact that the original supplement 4 that was included with Reagan's board packet I had asked for some clarification to it, and I had a couple changes like date or whatever. And then Greg, I think, had identified, or maybe it was Jim, identified like a mathematical.
That's great.
Usually. So, but there were a couple of things that needed to be addressed, and I had indicated to, is it Chris?
Chris Kaufman?
Yeah, Chris Kaufman, who has been my point of contact with it. The importance and the need to have a summary that goes along with it, as opposed to just a supplement saying, we're going to change these numbers here, here, and here. I said it would be more beneficial and more helpful for the board members to understand a description of why each section total is changing. And so the revised supplement 4 was emailed by Reagan, I believe it was yesterday, which is largely the same as the original. It has the corrections, and then it adds the summary to it. And so
It's this one pager. If you don't have a copy, I only got 3 more.
but this is something that was previously emailed, and it identifies the changes, it explains the changes, and then it gives a revised project estimated cost. And so if a board member was inclined to proceed with phase 2 electric, the first step, in my opinion, would be to entertain the motion to approve supplement 4.
And I have a question.
Sure.
In the second printout that came out, the numbers in 3, let's see.
We talking this handout, sir?
In the second,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Supplemental agreement number 4, let's see, there's number 1.
Yeah.
And then it jumps to number 3.
Yep.
On page 1 of Appendix D, the original agreement under item 1 design was not to exceed the amount increased 81.3 to 169.2. And on this older one, it had 53.8 and to 141.7. So that changed. Is this new one correct then?
Yes.
Okay.
This covers what I just said about consideration for a new auxiliary building, additional work, getting CenterPoint. Make sure CenterPoint understands everything that's going on, covers the revision of phase 2 with Mr. Sims and us. And we I pretty much don't see us having a supplement number 5, unless you decide to put the auxiliary building in. That's a whole nother thing.
That would be supplement 6.
6, okay, yeah, 5, okay.
So with, on Greg's question, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, because I've indicated this to reps of Aegis multiple times, I believe, on the record in the last meeting. The building, the auxiliary building, is a conceptual
Correct.
thing. So,
Can you
right.
pass those out?
You could, but
Okay.
the number that was referenced here under design, that should not include any design elements for that building, because the building is conceptual in nature. So the phase 2 electrical requirements would have been done based upon the general need of the building, based upon
Correct.
its status as a storage facility.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was,
Yeah.
that was clear.
When we start looking at being sure we don't, cut our nose off to spite our face again, as we like to say, I've got a large drawing here I can share with the group. When we say we've allowed for that, We have calculated generic square footages, general size of the building, general storage need, typical rule of thumbs for lighting, for air handling, and then we put a little buffer in there. So whatever we do when we put the new transformer in that's desperately needed next to the existing building, be pretty close to where the existing transformer is now. When CenterPoint upsizes that, whatever the future needs are of this potential auxiliary building and the solar panels, all that work is ready to connect. And Joe can jump in here, it's basically when you put your new transformer in, you got extra lugs in it for attaching solar panel power, for putting whether you're going to have a separate meter for the auxiliary building, or that's just going to be one meter for both your buildings, okay? All that work is thought out, but it's ready to be attached to when phase 2 is done. You don't have to go back in and change anything that you just put in phase 2, okay? Pretty much everything that we'll need for if the auxiliary building happens at the CenterPoint transformer from there to the north.
And just to add one comment for the board's benefit, because we have new board members, which I think it's important to share some of the background context. When we discovered, okay, so the building was built in like 2014.
Correct.
And so the electrical supply was designed for that building. Luckily, we, encountered a situation where the building's existing facilities for electric could handle the processing equipment. But the expansion of the need to be able to run the system simultaneously, the system works fine by itself. It's just when you take it out of the system and you try and bail it, you need to have the system in an idle phase.
Correct.
So then you can bail without overloading your circuitry. So understanding that problem happened when the thought came up of an auxiliary building, and I don't remember who recommended it, but they're like, well, if you're going to do that, this phase 2 electric really needs to add extra capacity just to make sure that we don't come back again and say, well, now we got to change it again, and then end up having to spend more money to do something twice when we could do it once with a minor increase to the overall cost.
I don't know why I thought I had to print it down large. Sorry, but I've got a couple we can hand over here. Here. No. Got one for both ends and one for the middle. How's that?
This right here, like office in the back there, mechanical, it's just in that little corner.
I think I can do this from memory fairly well. The shadow there, that's the north end of the existing. Yeah, so the driveway is the north end of the existing recycling building. Inside that, that's where Green Machine is. You'll see that there's two, as you're looking at that, it should be the upper left corner of the existing building. You'll see that there's a call out of the existing transformer. That's the one that's not quite big enough. The auxiliary building shown there on that hillside, and you think that's a big pile of dirt, or the work I've done in my life, okay, I'll get that out of there by Tuesday. That's not that big of a dirt move. Talking with Freddie, he's concerned that we have a truck dock, so when they load their bales up, that there is no truck blocking that drive for people to circulate around the building. So you'll see that we've got a double truck bay to the right-hand side of the proposed building there. And in that lower right-hand corner, you see just a small office and restroom facility if someone eventually has to be in there. Again, just planning things out in the future. It also puts them there so someone can visibly observe trucks backing in and loading. If they're in that office, they can oversee things.
I turned ours around,
North side of,
like we're looking at Pilser
Towns
Road.
up here, you're coming down this way, and you pull in, and
Right.
Freddie and the offices are like here,
Where we normally
and
park.
the loading dock is right there, and the parking lot's right there.
Mhm.
And then this is.
Loading dock you're talking about is here.
Facility here.
And that would prevent traffic
Trucks
flow
come
through
in,
here.
they go this way,
If the
go like
truck is
that,
parked
back
here.
up here.
This
Yeah.
is the proposed building here.
Yes.
So here's where
Forks
Freddie
that
say,
take
I
the
want
bales
my
across
trucks
the store.
I don't want a
Trucks
truck
get loaded.
backing up across here blocking this traffic.
Mm.
Because when they leave your
There's
neighbor,
actually,
trucks circulate
according to
around
this, it
here.
appears, well,
So he wants to,
I would
all
just
of
put
this
there
to
is-
keep this driveway clear.
Okay, so that's,
it's
How
a
much
dash
space
line.
is
Okay.
between?
yeah.
So here's what we have. We got plenty of room for two trucks to slide in there, a flat loading dock.
This building is
Okay,
200
so-
feet
And
wide.
it will have a
This
roof.
building would be 180
It would just be
feet wide.
open portable.
So, I
You
mean,
won't have a rain
maybe
door on it. It's
the
just
truck trailer's, what,
Okay.
50
keep the
feet
weather
long?
off of that. So
Maybe
Freddie said,
20.
well, on this, right over here, he says his
But
forklift
this
loader
won't
has
cause
a
any
bit of
problem
issue
with
with
trucks
concrete
coming
as
in
well.
here, right?
Well, the wheels of trucks
Yep.
come in
Yep.
like this, right, Reagan?
So
As they
it's
come
okay,
this
you
way.
can put a roof
So,
over
Okay.
that.
yeah, so in that scenario, they are,
So
these trucks might come in like this.
truck would come in
and then go
like
that. So
circulation
the
this
only
way.
interruption
So
you
the
would have
truck
would
would
easily
easily go
just
here
be in
and
that
back
truck
in.
coming in.
Now,
Then when they do their turn
And
maneuver,
then right here in
these
this
trucks
corner,
will sneak in there.
there said, we just
And
got.
then when they exit,
accommodate
this is
this
where they
where
wait for that. But
Small
no cars
office,
right Freddie is clear. It's like no parking allowed. I don't know what that is, but like this would all be clear.
Yeah.
Full furnace.
No, yeah.
Right.
so where's the big new phase 2 transformer?
Right over here.
Okay.
So number 4 is the existing
It's like when
4 and 5.
he's on
Five's existing,
Oh,
four's
phone
existing.
panel, I'm sorry. There's an old phone panel there.
That's 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 4 is the existing,
I said.
that's a 450 kVA
That whole extra would have
transformer.
had to be there. It was like,
It needs to be about 727.
It's a 300.
It's pretty wild.
We've got a lot of places that could.
400 amps. Okay.
Sir, you want to see this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it, thanks.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
When we run the numbers,
You're done.
get off track.
Right person's here.
Here's the transformers.
Yeah, he's got a
This is the back side of that building. right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's right.
That's where they bring in and dump their load.
May I?
Sure.
And
We-
funding.
Back in March, we did some preliminary phase 2 drawings. In fact, I passed them out, and I remember. They're nowhere near ready to go out to bid. But the purpose of it was to do some brainstorming, establish a scope and a budget for it. And Freddie and I spent some time going over equipment and what his dreams were. And well, now that, well, hopefully we'll proceed with the phase 2 design. Some of those tasks have to be revisited. And that's a natural process of design work. For example, Freddie wanted a power allowance for a second 200 horsepower air compressor. Because the machine's down, the air compressor's down. But I didn't know about a second baler. So anyway, so that's part of the design process. And Freddie did say that he wanted an allowance included in the power budget for a relatively small building addition. And then the Aegis overall facility planners got involved. And then it was determined that an actual separate building was the best approach. So anyway, as far as the
This building
location,
is 200.
here's the
like 200.
existing, this is a high voltage.
This is our sorter, right?
Yeah,
We want to
and
get
the
the
sorting.
center point. and
Right.
Well,
Build, this area right here is relatively free of utilities
Oh.
other than the high
Yeah.
voltage electric.
so
We want to build the new
I'm trying to think of how
transformer.
this is
But
laid
doesn't
out.
this
New
come
switchgear
this way?
side Before we disturb that.
We didn't
That will
move
minimize
this
that.
baler, right?
It goes like this
Yeah.
and then like this.
Right.
And so the
it
other
would be
part
a
of the
And they
system is the
load
camera.
everything
job
over
with
here, is that
Kevin's
correct?
assistant.
Yeah,
Okay.
come in here, and then that push wall they're talking about would be like over here.
It's their transformer,
Okay.
they will dictate.
So they come in, dump, push, load it into the machinery, it trickles this way. And so
And
this
again,
is,
this was
this is
just
explaining
like
like
a
the
central
transformer
idea
layout.
of how we might And this is a power one-line diagram. Think of it as an inverted tree.
Yeah, it might not be a huge
Tree trunk
deal
has-
not to be able
Ends
to
up with
run
lots of branches.
anything,
When the main switch board
everything
is
at
the
the same
trunk.
time
And by the time
today, but it
the
might be a
farthest
huge
branch
deal
is
in a
that
year.
much.
You know, that's the thing.
So, this was just a concept of how we
With
might
AC,
side of it. Bring in some new power, reconnect the existing, running, and minimize, at all costs, minimize the amount of redo. That would be good too, without something just installed, as well as some work. So, again, it was mentioned that Freddie probably did, I know, I love Freddie, but he said, well, Sim's already designed it. Yes, but on a very preliminary basis, that was just for preliminary purposes, so. But anyway, part of the process would be, if authorized to proceed, one of the first things I would do is meet with Freddie, and Freddie, I need to know every piece of equipment you're dreaming of. And will it all operate simultaneously, or is it impossible to operate it simultaneously? And then that will go into the final design.
Yeah.
The storage building, or it's really kind of a staging area. That was Freddie's request a long time ago. I am to allow power capacity for it and make sure that it's easy to connect when the decision is made to actually build it. Same way with any type of renewable energy like solar. We do a lot of solar energy design work. If this solar on the roof of the planned auxiliary building will produce more power than the auxiliary building will ever consume. Therefore, we need to connect the solar back to the main building, connect the power of the auxiliary back to the main building and connect it on the customer side, your side of the meter. We do that all the time. You know how to do it. We've worked with CenterPoint and several projects. So there's some things like that. The solar will not be designed now, but we'll get it set up where it's relatively easy to do so.
I have a dumb question. On the transformers, is that CenterPoint's property, or do we purchase the transformer?
No, they own it, they maintain it, and I will submit all of our load calculations, and I did on phase one. I'll submit all of our load calculations. During phase one, I also estimated the loads for phase two. I submitted all that to the engineers at CenterPoint. They replied back that the existing transformer could handle what we were calling phase one. For phase two, as I presented it, they would increase the size of the transformer. And they were proposing just setting it on the same pad. I cannot dictate to them, but I'm proposing a separate pad, separate installation, again, to minimize downtime.
Yeah.
But they own it, they're in control of it, but they also maintain it. And if it blows up someday, they have linemen on call 24/7 and spare transformers, so it's not always a bad thing. But CenterPoint's actually very cooperative. We work with utilities all over the region. CenterPoint's one of the best. I'm not worried about communicating with them, but I'll never agree with them about the size of the equipment they supply. But we tend to be conservative, but not wasteful with the funds. And, so, anyway, thank you.
Sure. Have we cleared things up for you?
Clear.
Well, you've got my card, you got my email. Anyone has any questions, thoughts after today, in the future, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any and all questions. So. Okay. Is that it, Adam, for now? For now.
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as the board members don't have any other questions, the task at hand is whether the board approves supplement 4 to initiate the process and the procurement that comes along with it. And one thing, I don't know if it was said today, but we have some lead time issues on some of the pieces that are components necessary for phase 2 electric that are considerable, like 12 months or whatever.
He could tell you that. Some of these electrical pieces are, with COVID, are very, very time.
Well,
We will, but he'll explain the timeline. Yeah.
the good news is the market and delivery time is improving. Transformers are typically down to 1 year or less of this size. A big substation style transformer is 3 years, but this is a relatively small pad mount. They probably will have one in their yard. So switchgear, 1600 or 2000 amp switchgear, that could be out about 16 weeks. That it's never been less than 16 weeks in my entire career, so that's back to normal. Copper, wiring and conduit, those are generally commodity items always in stock, but the price changes like the weather, but there's no lead time issues. If I've heard this correctly, you've eliminated the generator. That also eliminates a transfer switch. Those two are long lead items. A generator of the size originally proposed would be out over 1 year. So I guess I'm not really too worried about the lead time. The overall project procurement timeframe, we have to have time to do a final design. We have to advertise, receive bids, go through the shop drawing process where the contractors submit information on what they propose. And then we have to start digging a hole in the ground for the newer stuff. So it could easily be 5 to 6 months before we have a contractor on board. Now, you're the project manager. Kick me in the shin if I'm stepping on your toes. I do have some new steel-toed boots. So, but it's, in my opinion, sir, it's down to what I would call standard project delivery time. I don't see anything that's a super long lead item anymore.
Okay.
I probably should check with, I will check and report back to Kevin. I'll call up some of the switchgear vendors and find out what lead times are on switchboards, and I'll report back through Kevin. But we're back to standard issue electrical equipment for almost any building now. I will also, I can contact the engineers I work with at Centerpoint and see what their lead times are. On phase one, I've had numerous communications with a couple of their engineers. I'll reach out to them, try to get an update, because I did discuss lead times with them back in the phase one work. And the crux of phase one, well, like, why wasn't it big enough? Well, the lead time at that time for a larger transformer, larger gear was, oh my gosh, almost 2 years. And the equipment was, I'm not exaggerating, and the equipment was nearing completion in the factory and starting to ship to the job site. And so we did what we could with the existing electrical gear. And we tapped it, got every amp out of it. But I warned Freddie, if you try to run everything simultaneously, you run the risk of tripping the main circuit breaker or damaging the transformer. And so it was agreed that he would, when he's running the new green machine, he would not run some of his other equipment. And well, and Freddie's just been over backwards to try to make that happen and cooperate, but that's no way to run a facility. The electrical capacity should be there and should be nice and quiet in the background. That's what we want to do for you.
Cool.
Thank you.
So I'm clear on all of that. However, I'm unclear, what action do we need, council?
A motion to approve supplement 4 to
That's
Aegis.
it? Nothing more? Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Yeah, you could explain that so they could, if you recall a few minutes ago, before we started the phase 2 talk and before Reagan finished her business, Reagan had brought up the push wall issue. Kevin can describe that, and this the subject before the board right now would be whether the board would approve Aegis, Freddie and Reagan to work with Aegis for the development of a supplement 5, which would contemplate the design, construction / installation of the push wall.
Sir?
Okay. So every time we turn around, there's something else we need to, like, okay, if we're gonna make this really efficient, we need to change something. So if you've been out to the building, you come in from the north, that would be the overhead door between, that faces the proposed auxiliary building we just talked about, okay? If you're looking to pull in there, that's, pretty sure that's the north wall. The trucks come in and deposit their load in there on that floor, okay? So what Freddie has done with his front end loader, that he's got to pick up the raw material, take it to the metering bin and dump it with his front end loader. You try to use a dustpan, okay? You're chasing the Cheerios underneath the refrigerator if you don't have a broom, okay? So he is stacked up. You've seen them, we call them Jersey barriers. These are the trapezoidal shaped median barriers that you see along the interstate, as well as some of the waste concrete blocks that you see at some of your ready mix plants. They're the size of a small deep freeze or medium-sized deep freeze. They just, sometimes they make walls out of them. Problem is, your floor in this existing building is all nice and polished. And he can push up against them a little bit, but he's always scooting them. So what he wants to do is put a permanent wall in there, which we'd have to, scuff up the top of the concrete floor, put concrete anchors in there, pour some reinforced concrete, and put a steel plate over the front of it so he doesn't keep chipping it, okay? Now, that doesn't sound real complicated till you realize we're, again, retrofitting an existing building, which, I don't mean to open up Pandora's box here, but the question has already been raised with the installation of the green machine line of whether or not we've cut off code access to an exterior door. If you're in this building, fire alarm goes off, whatever, there is a limited distance that you have to keep everyone within so many feet of an emergency exit, or any exit, any exit, including emergency exits. So when we come over here, now we put, as you're facing this, you've got the metering bin is up here at the 10 o'clock position. The first leg goes from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and then it turns paralleling the right-hand side of the building as you're facing in there, running from the 3 o'clock to the 5 o'clock direction, or 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock direction. So the north wall, the top wall and the right-hand wall, the concern is already there. Did we cut off, making it a maze for people to get around to an exterior exit if an emergency were to happen? Let's face it, we've got piles of cardboard in there. Somebody could smoke a cigarette. I mean, here goes the 5 tons of loose paper burning in there within, a couple of minutes, which, they've got sprinklers and everything, but we still have to be sure people get out. So when we put this in here, we got to be sure, and we'll have an architect review it, that we, again, have not cut off access, emergency egress pathways. So we'll do this for the whole building. And part of this looking is we may have to punch a couple new exit doors in the exterior wall to stay within code. So it's not just putting up a concrete block wall for the front end loader to push against, okay? And it's a minor thing as far as actually construction cost and engineering. It's basically a plan, and it'll probably below your bid value. I think Indiana Assembly this year passed up the limit from 250 to 375 for having to go out for public bid. So you could ask for a quote. on this. It's below your, below that public bid limit. So that's what this is about. Simple things can get complicated.
So again, with that description, the issue isn't for them to proceed like we were discussing with the supplement 4, where that's actually going to start the engineering process and get things in motion for the request for proposals and things of that nature. This is just to develop the general, I guess, layout and the estimated cost for the design and the actual installation of materials. So it's kind of like approval to get the quote, so to speak, for that service.
Anyone?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Who's that?
I'll let Reagan sort that one out.
Well, the way I interpret it, the motion is based off my description that it's an authorization, as I raised earlier, for Freddie and Reagan to discuss with Kevin to develop the supplement 5. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes. Bring you back a concept plan.
Yeah.
With an
For the,
estimated cost.
yeah, and that's relative to the push wall, which is the subject that we're on.
Now, who seconded that?
And that was Jim 1, and who else was in there?
It was Trace.
Tracy, put Tracy there.
Somebody.
All right, everybody said they were all in favor. Is anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Great.
Yes, sir. Let the record show that Commissioner Seaton is leaving the meeting for her
All right.
schedule. And let's see here. Go back down to the approval of claims.
One last comment.
Yes, sir.
I have a meeting back in the Bloomington area at 5:30. I don't want to seem rude and leave in the middle of your meeting, but I'm happy to, if there's anything, I can come back next month and answer any more questions, but thank you for your time and I need to depart.
Yes, sir.
If that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of claims.
Okay, the claims this month were $399,909.72. See you. Thank you, Kevin. Anyone have any questions about those?
Motion to approve.
I didn't see anything, did you?
What?
I didn't see anything on it, did you?
Second.
I have a first and a second, all in favor.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And council, you're up.
Thank you. Let's see here. So relative to the first line item listed here on the agenda, which is the Kemp litigation. Looking here in my email for Reagan's board packet. Here it is. So we had received word, or I'd received word to the online docket that, well, actually, strike that. So if you might recall earlier on, I had reported to the board that I had worked with the insurance counsel in reviewing the motion for judgment on the pleadings in the Kemp litigation case. I think there's 6 defendants. We were one of them. The county's one of them, and some other potential contractors that they thought needed to be included, which very well some of them may not. But regardless, we were a defendant in that case. As you'd recall, the insurance originally denied our request for representation, and then after further consideration at our prompting, they decided to assign an attorney to help us out. That attorney reviewed the answer that I had prepared to the complaint, reviewed the complaint itself, reviewed some other materials that we had forwarded to them, and drafted a motion for judgment on the pleadings, which is basically saying, hey, they pled X. We answered it with Y. What they pled doesn't mean that there is a claim against us, and that the cause against the solid waste management district should be dismissed. And so I reviewed the judgment on the pleadings, gave my commentary to it, sent it back to insurance counsel. It was filed with the court. Hearing was set on the motion, and without hearing, the plaintiff in the case decided that the claim against Warrick County Solid Waste Management District, which is count 2, is dismissed. So that being said, the district is no longer subject to that lawsuit, and my interpretation of what occurred as a result of that pleading and the court's order on it. So that's the news I have to report there. So we should all be happy that that's behind us. And then the next item that's listed is the BLN supplement agreement, but understanding how we were talking about it with Kevin, it was just a natural flow for the board to consider that based upon them being listed under line item 4 in the agenda up above. So I have nothing further to comment on the BLN supplement agreement.
Any other business for the board? Brad, can I take this? Entertain the final motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Thanks, Stacy. Got the-
Aye.
I'm assuming no one's opposed there,
Yeah.
so meeting adjourned.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Stacy, I heard Stacy first.
I was at this end of the table, and that is how it occurred.